Thanks so much for your time today. My name is Matt Chapman, and I'm going to walk you through Fleetio Manage. First of all, if you've visited our site, you probably have noticed the option to browse the different features and products that we offer. Today specifically, we're going to be talking about the Fleetio Manage Pro and Advanced plan. You'll be able to sign up for a trial of either one of these at any point. You have annual and you have monthly options. You can also log in once you have an account with us and get started from here, but all your subsequent users can be added and they can then log in once they have a username and password for the account. So to highlight what we're going to talk about today, it starts with the different plans that we offer, but you note that everything that is included in Fleetio, the unlimited users that we offer, you have support, so you can contact our team with any questions by email or phone. You also will have unlimited storage, and since it's an online product, we update Fleetio regularly on your behalf, so you'll always be using the latest version of our solution. The difference between the two plans that we offer, the advanced plan is going to lean more towards running a shop and employing mechanics, tracking their labor time and labor rates, and then also looking at the parts that are being included. You have inventory management on the advanced plan as well. Both plans will include the option to download Fleetio Go as a mobile version of Fleetio with barcode scanning, attaching pictures, a lot of different things that are included that really tap into that native functionality of the mobile device, whether it's a smartphone or a tablet. If you're on our advanced plan, you'll also have access to Fleetio parts, which will be more focused on the inventory management side. I'll definitely let you know when we go from one plan to the next, so you understand where the features transition from one plan to the other one. But essentially, what we're going to walk through today is more or less the administrative view of Fleetio Manage. Note that with the unlimited users that we include in your subscription, you'll have the ability to set up very specific permissions and dictate exactly what people have access to. So my dashboard will show me everything. I can prioritize the modules, or essentially the widgets as we call them, that I want to see on my dashboard, but I can also limit people to only see certain record types and certain vehicles or assets within the system. All of these here are clickable lists, so you can go straight through to reporting. You can see the dialogue going back and forth, comments associated with records, and then you can go to a list of reminders, a list of issues. Essentially everything that needs your attention will show up here. Pretty much all of these items, as far as the lists and the alerts, will be email driven as well, so you can receive a notification automatically from Fleetio as it pertains to the reporting of a problem, the missed inspection, the service that's due on a vehicle. We centralize all of that really based off the vehicle record itself, and you can categorize vehicles in Fleetio based off of the type of vehicle, the group that it falls into, and then also the status. These three will be customizable based off your account, so if you want to sort vehicles in the reports or set permissions or set up inspections, this can really be a great foundation for that, namely the group, and you can have as many groups and subgroups as you want to categorize the different assets in your fleet. The big differentiator between one asset and another typically would be the meter setting, as we call it. You have the freedom of using miles, kilometers, and also hours for equipment to set up the vehicles and to set up the expectation for how you want them maintained and on what intervals. So that'll be some flexible options that are available to you. You can go in and you can also print off barcodes for every asset in the system. That means it'll be recognizable through the mobile app. So if you pull up Fleetio Go and you scan that barcode, it'll take you directly to the profile that you see here for a vehicle. We try to make it very easy to navigate, so instead of just clicking through the list or using the mobile app, you can actually search in the nav bar up at the top that allows you to highlight any matching part of the name, the VIN, or the license for the assets in your fleet. The overview here should give you a really good idea of the current standing of the vehicle, once again highlighting the status, showing you the current driver or assignee, and then also giving you an idea of the group that it falls into, the type of vehicle, and you have have some other options when you get set up of using our Vinda code to bulk apply, the setup process. So you can go in and use the Vinda code to then bring back details that are provided from a database that we link up with here at Fleetio. So you'll be able to see things like fuel economy, engine transmission information, wheel and tire sizes, and fluid capacity. So right now that would be the US VIN lookup. We do have some options for Europe as well that's based off the registration. So that can really help you get started. And in the add vehicle option, you'll see the option to add multiple vehicles. Note that imports are also included in your subscription, so you can download templates from Fleetio. You'll do that under the account settings and then the import data link there that'll allow you to download a template for your vehicles, your service history, really every record type for the most part in Fleetio can have that bulk application, and you can use your own spreadsheet to get that information in here, or you can go in and you can add individual records and set up that way, however you'd prefer. Once you have a vehicle in motion, really what we're trying to do here is keep it updated with connections like our GPS integrations, or you can use our fuel card integration, or simply log fuel as it happens. So fuel in Fleetio is pretty straightforward. We're going to ask for the key things that really help us make these calculations about cost per mile and efficiencies for that vehicle. You'll be able to see the usage since the last fill up, the cost per mile just for fuel, and then also the updated odometer will drive progress in our system. What that leads to in the overview that you'll see here and also in reporting is the overall fuel economy stats that allow you to have some comparative numbers from one vehicle to the next, and then that does contribute to the overall cost per mile, which factors in service. So the usage per day is going to be calculated based off of any update in the system, and then that'll drive progress and projections for things like reminders. Service reminders in Fleetio will allow you to set up the expectation for how vehicles should be managed and maintained in the system. You can add multiple reminders at one time. You can also import these reminders as well. The key thing to note is that it can be based off of the usage of the asset, and it can also be based off of the elapsed time, or whichever happens first would be the trigger that sends out the email alert to whoever the subscribers are for that particular reminder. One other option that you have here is the ability to see on a schedule when you should be coming due for those services, even if they aren't already flagged as being due or overdue. So we show you per week when those services should hit. You'll simply enter either from the link in the email or from the list here that services happened, and it'll auto-populate that particular task for that vehicle, and you can simply enter what you paid for that, what vendor you took it to, and you can even drag and drop or upload an invoice to that record. The other type of reminder we have in Fleetio is called a renewal reminder. The focus here is going to be more on the date-based alert. So registration, insurance, things that really keep the vehicles compliant. Outside of maintenance, typically you would set up these reminders to let you know in advance of a due date. So if you have registration that's due by the end of March, we'll say you would set up the reminder for the beginning of March, and then you can have it go due soon once you get in range, so you have plenty of heads-up notice. You can easily reset these or reschedule them to the next due date once they come due and you've actually tackled that particular task. So then you can just note the next time that it'll be coming up. You can apply renewals to what we call contacts as well in Fleetio. And think of a contact as any individual that interacts with the fleet. So if Bill is a mechanic or a driver or simply an administrator, maybe I want to have a record that Bill interacts with the fleet, that he has the ability to be assigned to vehicles or assigned maintenance tasks, and you can have a comprehensive profile for him in the system just like you can a vehicle. That overlap being the maintenance ticket or the assignment if they're driving or operating that particular asset. You have the renewals for things like their license, their certification, medical requirements. So you can set up reminders to the person. And just like a vehicle, you'll have unlimited photo and document attachment to their profile, so you can then keep any paperwork, regs, or anything important on that particular profile and always be able to reference that, once again, from any internet-connected device. for any exceptions that can happen in the system. So if you have a problem that happens with a vehicle, like a mechanical failure, you've been in an accident, there's damage to a vehicle, all of those would fall into the bucket of what we call an issue in Fleetio. The big benefit here is that an issue can then be managed from initiation into the system all the way to resolution. So really it captures every potential problem, and you can see it through to the moment where it's actually fixed and have a corresponding expense that goes along with that. An issue can include pictures, it can include descriptions, it can include everything that would help you triage the situation and then indicate that the fix has happened with all the corresponding data on that side. So note that with the issues, you can also link up with inspections. For our GPS providers, you can also receive faults directly from some of the partners that we have and interact with. So that could come directly from what they provide, and then it once again enters the maintenance workflow here in Fleetio and can have notifications around it, and you can note everything that was done to fix that particular problem, or simply just close it out and note that it was not something you intended to fix at this particular moment. So on the inspection side, the issue can be driven by an exception. And note that with our inspections in Fleetio, you have a lot of flexibility as to how you want to structure a checklist, either for the drivers, the mechanics, maybe a monthly manager walk around, to really get a baseline condition for the vehicle and catch any exceptions before they become real problems. So you have that way of communicating that, hey, my driver did find a problem and let's go ahead and get that fixed, and note, specifics about where it came from, who reported it, and obviously the vehicle that it comes off of. We do have the option for you to utilize our DOT checklists. If you want to do a pre and post trip inspection, you can use our DVIR template, and I would just recommend calling that the pre/post trip inspection. But for any international users or any other use cases, you can customize the checklist that is being presented to your drivers, to your mechanics. And so you can set up the form. You have unlimited forms. You can actually apply those specifically to only certain assets in your account, and then you'll have the option of setting up what we call workflows. So the vehicles and the schedules would be part 2 or step 2 of the process. You can then input details about what they need to be doing as they perform this check with descriptions. You can attach pictures and do anything needed to communicate to the driver, here's how you make that evaluation. So when they do find a problem, or if they do submit a form, in some cases, maybe I want an activity to follow that, and that's what we call a trigger and then a workflow. So you can set up a workflow based off of the submission of a form, or more often for many of our customers, that's going to be upon the failure of an item. So it'll specifically, trigger off a specific item that's failed. I found a problem with the tires, and that email goes to the mechanic. Or I found an issue with the registration of the vehicle not being current. Maybe that goes to an administrator. And so all of that can be factored in as you structure a workflow and then indicate what you want to happen based off of that trigger. So I have something that's found as far as an exception that immediately can pop up, ask the driver for more information, and then create an issue. It can send emails to people on your account, and it can also update the vehicle status. So all of those are options. To give you an idea just real quick of what that looks like, we'll jump into Fleetio Go. And Fleetio Go is our mobile app that's going to allow you specifically to capture all the information about vehicles in the mobile app. You'll have the barcode scanning functionality that I already mentioned, and then you can easily go through the checklist process and start that by selecting a vehicle. So you'll see an overview in Fleetio Go of that vehicle. You'll be able to go in and see any items that are overdue or that need my attention, and then you can start an inspection by going into the inspections area, and then you can start a daily vehicle check here. I'll hit start, and then the first thing it's going to do is ask me to confirm a previous resolution. That's coming from a resolved issue that I found previously with doing the inspection. And then as I walk through this, it'll ask for things like odometer, where I can simply put the odometer reading, and then I can move through the checklist. So if I have more about the specifics on the positive or negative response to these checks, I can go in and I can enter, hey, I found a problem here with the tires. It'll pop up and ask me to take a photo or provide a comment to back that up. I also can ask for things like signatures, and I can add photos or any comments just by nature of going through this and finding a positive response, but I still want to follow up with a picture. So when the submission comes into Fleetio, it's going to highlight the location where that particular inspection happened. You'll also be able to see any exceptions that were found. So if I'm looking at the map here, I can see every check in the list will show me on a map where that particular inspection happened. It'll also go in and ask for more information. As I mentioned, on a failure, that pops up in this case and says, provide more information on the tires and why you had to fail that item. So now we've got a working ticket that was created by that issue, and that workflow can then be seen as far as the audit trail throughout the system. Kind of going back to the issue, you'll see, hey, now we have a working ticket that can then be knocked out by either a service entry if you're on our Pro plan, or if you're on our Advanced plan, there'll be a service entry or a work order option for you. So that's really where it comes all together on the maintenance side. So if I'm on the Pro plan, I can go in and I can just create a service entry, and that would look something like what we're going to see here, where it calls out the service that was performed on the vehicle. You'll be able to see how much that costs, and then also on a line item level, all the detail if you want to provide that. So it's going to show me, in this case, the boom truck went in for service. It went to this particular location. We did these particular tasks as we were walking through the service. An oil change, we've got a total there. We can say on the oil filter replacement, here was the parts and labor subtotal. And then I can also include any notes. I can view the history of every time that oil change has been done. I can link any issues that have been reported for that vehicle to the service item, and I can see all the expected services based off the reminders that have been set up for the vehicle. And that'll be color-coded to call your attention to anything specific that I need to do now in a timely fashion. I can attach any invoices or additional information here via the drag and drop option, and then I can also include any additional notes on essentially a service entry level. So instead of note by note on the line items, I can include general notes here. As I'm completing service here, you'll note that it immediately updates the cost per mile for your vehicles. So you'll see the service history immediately. You'll be able to see the reminders reset automatically. But if we switch gears here a little bit and we jump from the Pro plan once again to the Advanced, you're going to see the detail level increase as we go to work orders. So if you're on our Advanced plan, you'll have access to work orders and the service entry option. So you can go in, and for the work order side, you'll be able to set up the stages in which a work order can be walked through as you go to the final step where it's completed. So this is customized per your account. Up under the settings, what work order statuses exist, but note that you could have as many statuses as you want, and they can be specific to your internal workflow. A little different from the service entry, you'll see a couple new buttons show up on this that allow you to enter more detail. And so we can call out specifically on the work order who's doing the work. So Bill in this case is doing the work, how many hours. You can input that, and his hourly rate can auto-populate. I can also go in and pick the parts here. And this is really multi-tiered as far as how involved you want to get on the part side. You can add a new part straight from this menu here. You can see that if I've used parts before, I'll also have these suggested based off the vehicle history. So it'll say, well, this is the most used oil for this vehicle, and the filter will be called out as well. So I can simply note that I'm using a part, and that'll create a history for that part and allocate it to the vehicle record as well with the install mileage, install date. But I can also have this tied to inventory. So if I do that and I enter a quantity of 1 in this case, I'll be selecting the warehouse or the location that we would call it to pull that from. So now I'll know exactly how many I have at the Birmingham location here. I can continue to add parts on the line item level. You can then browse the work order by the total part inclusion and also the labor as well. And so you can continue to build this. Once you're done with the work order, you'll just simply mark it as completed in that final step. And then once again, just like a service entry, it'll reset the reminders for any corresponding activity. It'll also allocate the cost to that vehicle on a line item basis, so I can then see the total cost for these particular services and those tasks, as we call them, across the different vehicles. If I wanted to add a new task, I can also do that, and that's true in the service entry as well. So I can really customize this list of available tasks to match what my mechanics are typically doing or what the expectation is for each asset. Keep in mind, we say vehicle a lot, but you can do the same thing as far as entering maintenance for a trailer or for equipment as you would be able to for a vehicle. They all count the same. They all have those profiles in Fleetio. If we're looking at the part side, note that it could technically be a standalone inventory that I'm managing here. Once again, the Fleetio Parts app becomes, one of the main interaction methods for managing inventory. So I can use this as a barcode scanner. I can actually highlight specifically the totals at each location. I can print off labels through the system, and I'll have a way of easily accessing each part with the lookup that we have and the ability to filter based off of location, categories, manufacturers, and things of that nature. If I go in to select a part, it'll then take me to an overview for that part across all locations. I can then update the current quantity by clicking here. I'll just then need to select a reason. Why did I adjust inventory? Was it a manual adjustment? Was it updating the current quantity via like a bulk check, which you can perform in Fleetio? You can also transfer parts from one location to the next to specify the end destination. And then if you're low on stock, you can reorder with Fleetio and track that purchase order process within our user interface here. So in terms of what we're looking for, and we'll send a daily email about this as well, is the current quantity at each location and whether or not that is low on stock, qualified by what you consider a low threshold, or if you happen to be out of stock for that part, we'll notify you accordingly. So you'll see that on the home page, and then ultimately as you reorder, you can track those purchase orders and see the full history of that in our system. So the PO is really meant to be triggered as soon as you have a low quantity or low stock alert. We'll ask you to create a purchase order, and then you can track that through to the fact that you've received that part. So every step in the process is documented, and you can actually have permissions associated with that. So as I reorder parts, I'll be able to see, where I am in terms of whether or not I've received them, what parts are being ordered to what locations, and these are printable. You can create a PDF of this and send it off if you need to. So if I have the right permissions, on an administrative level, I can then receive notifications about things like approvals. I can include additional information as I go through the process, but once we get to the point where we're actually marking these as received, then it's going to allocate it back to stock, and then I'll be able to see where I am specifically in that process. On the report side, you will be able to see all of this really holistically. So whether you're using our fuel card integration to get fuel in, and you'll see the setup options here underneath the Manage Fuel Card page. We work with Comdata, we work with WEX, we work with FleetCor, whether you're using GPS to get odometers updated, so you'll be able to see the current mileage, the usage of the vehicles. All that really serves to be centralized here in the operating cost summary and the overall reporting views that we give you. So for every report in Fleetio, you can go in and you can filter down based off of things like time frame, the types of vehicles, the groups of vehicles, and then even as specific as your make model here. I can save a report, I can export it to a spreadsheet format, or I can print to PDF. I can also choose the columns that are presented in that PDF, so it would then change what the output looks like based off of what I would prefer to see here. And one of the newer features in Fleetio here, you can save them now, and you can also schedule these reports. So I say, well, my monthly operating cost report, I want that to be made available to everybody on my account or kept private, and then I can schedule it to where it comes to me on a regular basis. So every Friday at 3:55, or I can make it monthly, and it happens on the last day of the month. So a lot of things that I can do to make sure that I'm getting this information without having to jump into the system and dig through that. So the saved reports reports will show up on your reporting dashboard here, but you'll also be able to go in and find that at any point. The service history gives you a good idea of everything that's ever been done from a maintenance standpoint on every vehicle in the account. Once again, you have your save and export options and the ability to print, but you can change the view here by service entry, by service tasks, so you can drill into specific types of tasks like oil changes, tire rotations, whatever you set up the account for. You'll also be able to dig into things like inspections, where I can see the failure rates, the problems that are occurring more often than not with issues and things of that nature. You can pick out the vehicles that are the biggest offenders and also the components that I'm checking that tend to come up more often as failed items. You can go into other reports that show things like your summary, my total expenses, my total fuel distributed to my vehicles over a given period of time, average fuel economy, and the ability to filter down by, once again, things like fuel type and other parameters that factor into this. If you're in the US and you're concerned with IFTA reporting, we do have a report that will show you the fuel summary by location. So that's basically the transactions and the totals associated with that by the state. So you can then use that in tandem with your GPS data to then see the mileage driven per state and submit that. So this is a great example of how you can actually have this information sent to you automatically on the for each quarter or whatever the rotating basis would be, for you to have this available and ready to use. In terms of the navigation here, I want everybody to be familiar with the fact that you can definitely update a lot of the things that you've seen today in terms of the fuel economy settings, the meter settings for the vehicle, and the standard account-wide options can all be laid out under the account settings. You can also use this to personalize things like custom fields, to definitely give yourself a list of customized statuses or groups or things of that nature. You can also get in touch with our support team via the Get Help link here, and you'll be able to see that we have online user guides like our Help Center, and our training videos are available via this link as well. I want to thank you so much for your time today. I know there was a lot to cover in a short amount of time. Feel free to start a trial of the system. Note that that is your actual Fleetio account. You can add real information, get a sense of how it works for you, and then if you decide to move forward, everything's still in your account. Nothing changes. It just becomes paid after that free period. If you need any more information, you can contact sales@fleetio.com, and we'll be happy to help there as well. And thanks so much. Have a great day.